You know, in a world that often tries to define a woman by superficial standards, by the way she looks, the clothes she wears, the attention she gets, there's a deeper truth that's often overlooked. Let me ask you something. What makes a woman truly valuable? Is it her beauty, her charm, her popularity? No, it's none of that. A valuable woman isn't defined by what the world sees. She's defined by what she carries within. It's her strength, her wisdom, her integrity, her ability to rise when life tries to knock her down. That's value. That's power. You see, diamonds don't beg to be noticed. Gold doesn't shout, "Look at me!" Their value speaks for itself. And that's exactly how you should carry yourself. You don't have to chase attention. You don't have to fit into someone else's mold. You were created to stand out, not because you try, but because of the light you carry within. The world will try to tell you to dim that light, to make others comfortable. Don't you dare, shine anyway. Now let's break this down into key truths that every woman needs to hear, not just to survive in this world, but to thrive. Your worth is not determined by others' validation. Let that sink in. Too often, we live our lives waiting for someone to clap for us, to tell us we're enough, to give us permission to feel valuable. But here's the truth. If you live for their applause, you'll die when they stop clapping. You cannot hang your self-worth on someone else's approval because people are fickle. One day they love you, the next day they forget you. One minute you're the favorite, the next you're invisible. If your value is tied to their opinions, you'll be on an emotional roller coaster you didn't even buy a ticket for. You've got to understand that your worth was stamped on you the moment you were created. You didn't have to earn it. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to convince anyone to see it. Imagine a $100 bill, crumple it, step on it, drag it through the mud. Does it lose its value? No. It's still worth $100. It's the same with you. Life may try to crumple you, people may try to step on you, your circumstances may drag you through the mud, but none of that changes your worth. It's inherent, it's untouchable, it's yours. But here's the challenge. Knowing it is one thing, living like it is another. Because the world will test you. It will whisper in your ear that you're not good enough unless you have this or look like that or achieve something grand. And if you're not rooted in your own sense of worth, you'll start chasing things outside of yourself to fill the void. You'll chase relationships, thinking someone else's love will make you feel whole. You'll chase success, thinking that achievements will validate your existence. You'll chase attention, thinking if enough people notice you, you'll finally feel like you matter. But here's the catch. No amount of external validation can fill an internal void. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It looks like it should help, but it only makes you thirstier. The more you seek validation from others, the more you'll need it. It becomes an addiction, and the withdrawals, they're brutal. Because the moment people stop giving you the validation you crave, you're left questioning your own worth. You've got to flip the script. Instead of asking, do they see my value? Start asking, do I see my own value? Because when you do, you stop auditioning for roles in other people's lives where you're only meant to be an extra. You start walking into rooms like you belong there, not because someone invited you, but because you know your presence is the invitation. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for you. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. And let me tell you something. When you start owning your worth, some people won't like it. They'll call you arrogant. They'll say you've changed. And you know what? They're right. You have changed. You've stopped living on the discount rack, hoping someone will see your value. You've moved to where you belong. Priceless. Not because someone said so, but because you know so. Don't let your value be negotiable. It's not up for debate. It's not contingent on someone staying in your life. It's not dependent on a job title, a relationship status, or the number of likes on a post. Your value is in who you are, not what you do. It's in your character, your heart, your resilience, your authenticity. And that can't be taken from you. Not by rejection, not by failure, not by heartbreak. Think about a lighthouse. Its job isn't to go searching for ships to prove it's useful. It just stands tall, shines its light, and trusts that those who need it will find their way. Be like that. Stand in your worth. Shine your light. Don't dim it because someone else is uncomfortable with your brightness. That's not your problem to fix. And here's the most beautiful part. When you truly see your own value, you start to attract people and opportunities that align with that worth. You stop settling. You stop tolerating less than you deserve. You stop participating in relationships, romantic, platonic, professional, that require you to shrink to be accepted. You create a life that reflects your value because you're no longer trying to convince anyone else of it. So, the next time you find yourself doubting, the next time you feel invisible, the next time you're tempted to beg for someone's attention, pause, take a deep breath, look in the mirror and remind yourself, I am enough. I've always been enough, and I don't need anyone to confirm it for me, because at the end of the day, self-worth isn't something you find, it's something you decide. And the moment you decide it, the world will have no choice but to adjust. Confidence is not loud. It doesn't need to be. True confidence doesn't walk into a room shouting, demanding attention. It doesn't need to announce itself because it's felt. It's a presence, a quiet strength that speaks louder than words ever could. It's in the way you carry yourself, the way you look people in the eye, the way you stand tall, not because you think you're better than anyone else, but because you know you're not less. Confidence isn't about arrogance. It's about certainty. The kind of certainty that says, I know who I am, and I'm not here to prove it to anyone. But here's the thing, confidence doesn't come from pretending. It's not about faking it till you make it. It comes from doing the work. It's built in the moments when no one's watching. It's built in the small, unseen battles you fight every single day. When you get up after failing. When you keep going even when doubt screams louder than hope. When you choose integrity over popularity. That's where real confidence is born. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows where character is forged. You see, a lot of people think confidence comes from success. They think, once I achieve this, once I look like that, once I have this title, then I'll feel confident. But that's backward. Confidence is what gets you to success, not the other way around. If your confidence is tied to achievements, then every failure will shake it. But if your confidence is rooted in who you are, no external circumstance can touch it. Because success is temporary, but self-belief, that's eternal. Confidence is also about ownership. Owning your story, your flaws, your strengths, your past, your future. It's standing in front of the mirror and not flinching. Not because you think you're perfect, but because you've made peace with your imperfections. It's easy to be confident when everything's going right, but the real test is when life falls apart. When you're heartbroken, when you're rejected, when you're overlooked. Can you still stand tall then? Can you still say, I am worthy, when the world says otherwise? And let's be real, confidence will make people uncomfortable. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your light exposes their insecurities. Some people will call it cocky, some will try to dim it, but don't shrink to make others feel comfortable. That's not your job. Your job is to be fully you, unapologetically, because when you stand in your truth, you give others permission to do the same. Confidence is also knowing when to be silent. It's not about always having the last word, it's about knowing you don't need to. It's realizing that you don't have to prove your worth through arguments, through validation, through applause. Silence can be the loudest response. When someone underestimates you, let your results speak. When someone doubts you, let your consistency answer. When someone disrespects you, let your absence be the response. That's confidence. Not reacting to everything, but choosing what deserves your energy. And here's something powerful. Confidence is contagious. When you walk in self-belief, you inspire others to believe in themselves. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because authenticity has a ripple effect. People feel it. They're drawn onto it. Not the facade, but the realness. So when you show up self, fully, flaws and all, you're not just changing your life, you're giving others the courage to do the same. But don't get it twisted. Confidence doesn't mean you never feel fear. It doesn't mean you never doubt. It means you feel the fear and do it anyway. It's standing on shaky legs and speaking with a trembling voice because your purpose is bigger than your comfort. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. And that decision, that's where confidence lives. So, how do you build it? You show up. Every day. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You keep promises to yourself. You do the thing you said you'd do long after the mood you said it in has left. Because confidence is built through consistency. It's not a switch you flip. It's a muscle you strengthen. And every time you show up, every time you push through, that muscle grows. Surround yourself with people who remind you of your power, not your limitations. Protect your mind like it's sacred ground, because it is. What you feed it matters. Speak life over yourself. Speak hope. Speak truth. Look in the mirror and say, I am capable, I am strong, I am enough. Not because you're trying to convince yourself, but because you're declaring it until your soul believes it. And when it's hard, when doubt creeps in, when the noise gets loud, go back to the basics. Remember who you are. Not who they say you are, not who you think you should be, but who you truly are. Beyond the titles, beyond the roles, beyond the masks. You are enough. You've always been enough. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can change that. Respect is not something you demand. It's not something you chase after, begging for validation from people who can't even respect themselves. Respect is something you command. Not through arrogance, not through loud words or forceful actions, but through the way you carry yourself, the way you live your life, and the standards you refuse to lower. See, respect isn't given because you want it. It's given because you've shown you deserve it. Not through titles, not through money, but through character. Let me tell you something. People watch how you treat yourself before they decide how to treat you. If you don't respect your own time, don't be surprised when others waste it. If you don't set boundaries, don't be shocked when people cross them. It starts with you. Self-respect isn't selfish, it's necessary. It's the foundation of every relationship, every interaction, every decision. When you respect yourself, you send a message without saying a word. This is the standard. This is how I expect to be treated. And if you can't meet it, you don't get access to me. Now, some folks will test you. Oh, they'll test you. They'll see how far they can push, how much they can take, how little they can give. That's life. But here's the key. You don't have to react to everything. You don't have to argue, to explain, to convince anyone of your worth. Your actions will speak louder than your words ever could. Walk away from disrespect. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to know you deserve better. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the loudest statement you can make. And listen, respect isn't just about how others treat you. It's about how you treat others, even when they don't deserve it. Because your character isn't defined by how you treat the people who are kind to you. It's defined by how you treat the ones who aren't. Respect isn't a transaction. It's not, I'll respect you if you respect me. No, it's a reflection of who you are. You don't lose anything by showing respect, but you lose a lot when you forget to give it. But don't confuse kindness with weakness. Don't confuse patience with passivity. Setting boundaries doesn't make you mean, it makes you wise. You can be kind and firm. You can be compassionate and strong. The people who matter will understand that. The ones who don't, they were never meant to stay in your life anyway. Protect your peace like it's priceless, because it is. Respect also comes from consistency. Anyone can be respectful when it's easy, when things are going well. But what about when you're frustrated, when someone disappoints you, when life doesn't go your way? That's when true character shows. Can you still hold your head high? Can you still treat others with dignity, even when they've hurt you? That's not weakness, that's strength. Because it's easy to react, it's easy to lash out, but it takes discipline to respond with grace, to choose integrity over impulse. And here's the truth. Respect isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet decisions. The decision to walk away from a toxic situation. The decision to stand up for yourself when your voice shakes. The decision to say no without feeling guilty. Respect is in the boundaries you set, the standards you uphold, and the people you choose to surround yourself with. Stop trying to make people respect you. You can't control them. You can't force it. But you can control how you carry yourself. You can control the energy you allow in your life. You can control your response, and that's enough. Because the right people, the ones who matter, they'll recognize your value without you having to prove it. They'll meet your standards without you having to lower them. And let's talk about self-respect. It's not just about setting boundaries with others, it's about setting boundaries with yourself, holding yourself accountable, keeping promises you make to yourself, showing up for yourself even when no one's watching. Because if you don't respect your own goals, your own dreams, your own well-being, why would anyone else? Self-respect is the root. Everything else grows from there. Respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you embody. It's in your walk, your talk, your choices. It's in the way you show up for life, the way you treat people who can't do anything for you, the way you handle rejection, failure, disappointment. You want respect? Start by respecting yourself. The rest will follow. Maybe not immediately, maybe not from everyone, but from the right people, and that's all that matters. So the next time someone disrespects you, don't get caught up in trying to fix them. They're not your project. They're not your problem. Your job isn't to make them see your worth. Your job is to never forget it. Walk away with your head held high, not because you're running, but because you know you're worth more than the nonsense they're offering. That's power. That's respect. And it starts with you. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. Growth doesn't come wrapped in ease, tied with a pretty little bow. No, real growth, deep, transformative growth, comes from the struggle, from the setbacks, from the moments when life feels like it's pressing down on you with everything it's got. It's in those moments when you feel stretched thin, when your heart is heavy, when you're questioning why things aren't going the way you planned. That's where growth lives. That's where you find out what you're really made of. See, life's not about avoiding the storms. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. It's about standing tall when the winds of adversity try to knock you down. Because those storms, they're not here to break you, they're here to build you. Every disappointment, every failure, every heartbreak, it's shaping you. It's chiseling away at the parts of you that don't serve your purpose, refining you into the person you're meant to become. But here's the thing, growth isn't automatic, it's a choice. You can go through hard times and come out bitter, or you can come out better. It's up to you. The pain is inevitable, but the progress, that's optional. It's easy to sit in the frustration, to let the weight of life crush your spirit. But what if, instead of asking, why is this happening to me, you started asking, what is this trying to teach me? That shift in mindset, that's where the power is. That's where the growth begins. You see, comfort zones are cozy, but nothing ever grows there. Comfort zones are where dreams go to die, where potential gets buried under layers of fear and routine. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. If you're not being challenged, you're standing still. And standing still in life is just another form of going backward. Growth requires stretching, reaching, falling, failing, and getting back up again. Think about it. When you go to the gym, what makes your muscles stronger? Resistance, the weight, the struggle. It's the same with life. Emotional, mental, spiritual muscles, they grow under pressure. They grow when you face challenges head on, when you refuse to quit, even though quitting would be easier. Growth is hidden in the grind, tucked away in the discomfort, but you've got to be willing to embrace it. Now let's be real, it's not always going to feel good. Growth often feels like loss because you're shedding old habits, old mindsets, sometimes even old relationships. You're letting go of what no longer fits the person you're becoming, and that can hurt. But don't confuse that pain with failure. That pain is a sign that you're evolving, that you're breaking free from the limitations you once accepted. Growth demands that you face yourself. Not the version of you that you present to the world, but the real you. The fears, the insecurities, the excuses, all of it. Growth requires honesty. It requires vulnerability. It means looking in the mirror and asking, where am I holding myself back? What stories am I telling myself that keep me small? And then having the courage to rewrite those stories. But here's the beautiful part. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you expand. Your confidence grows, your resilience strengthens, your vision gets clearer, and you start to realize that you're capable of more than you ever thought possible. The challenges you once thought would break you, they become the very things that built you. Don't be afraid to outgrow people, places, or situations. Sometimes growth means walking a path alone, at least for a while. But loneliness isn't the enemy, stagnation is. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, who inspire you, who push you to be better. People who clap when you win and hold you accountable when you slip. Growth isn't just personal, it's relational. Who you surround yourself with matters. And remember, growth isn't linear, it's messy. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's progress wrapped in frustration. But don't mistake detours for dead ends. Just because it's taking longer than you thought doesn't mean it's not happening. Keep showing up, keep doing the work, even on the days when it feels like nothing's changing, especially on those days, because that's when the real transformation is happening beneath the surface. So if you're feeling stuck, If you're in a season of struggle, don't run from it. Lean into it. Ask yourself, what is life trying to teach me right now? And then listen. The answers might not come right away, but trust that they're there. Trust that every challenge is an invitation to rise higher, to dig deeper, to grow stronger. Growth isn't glamorous. It's not always Instagram-y, but it's worth it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every uncomfortable conversation, it's all part of the process. And when you come out on the other side, you'll realize that the person you became was worth every moment of discomfort. Because growth is the bridge between who you are and who you're destined to be. Don't be afraid to cross it. Respect isn't something you demand, it's something you command through the way you carry yourself. It's not about raising your voice or flexing your power. It's about presence. It's about the silent strength that speaks louder than words. You see, real respect isn't given to the loudest person in the room. It's given to the one who knows who they are, who stands firm in their values, and doesn't waver when the world tries to shake them. When you know your worth, you don't have to beg for respect. You don't have to chase validation. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. People can feel it. It's in the way you walk into a room, in the way you hold your head high, in the way you look someone in the eye with quiet confidence. That's the kind of respect that doesn't fade when you're not around. It lingers. It's rooted in authenticity. But here's the thing, respect starts with you. If you don't respect yourself, how can you expect others to? Self-respect isn't about arrogance or ego, it's about self-awareness. It's about knowing your boundaries, your non-negotiables, and having the courage to stand by them even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Because every time you compromise your values to fit in, to be liked, to avoid conflict, you chip away at your self-respect. And when that happens, people can sense it. They treat you the way you treat yourself. Respect isn't just about how others see you. It's about how you see yourself when no one's watching. It's in the decisions you make when you think no one will find out. It's in the promises you keep to yourself. It's in the way you talk to yourself when you fail, when you fall short. Are you your biggest critic or your strongest supporter? Because how you speak to yourself sets the tone for how the world speaks to you. Now, let's talk about boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're guidelines to teach people how to treat you. They're not about control, they're about clarity. When you set boundaries, you're not being difficult, you're being honest. You're saying, this is what I need to thrive, this is what's okay, and this is what's not. And here's the kicker. People who respect you will honor those boundaries. People who don't will try to push them, to test them, to make you feel guilty for having them. But their discomfort isn't your problem. Your peace is. There's power in silence, in not reacting to every slight, every disrespect, not because you're weak, but because you've mastered the art of choosing your battles. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every offense needs a response. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is to say nothing, to walk away, to protect your peace. Because when you know who you are, you don't need to prove it. But don't mistake silence for passivity. There's a difference between staying silent because you're afraid and staying silent because you've risen above it. The first comes from insecurity, the second from strength. When you operate from a place of self-respect, your silence speaks volumes. It says, I know my worth, and I don't need to engage in anything that diminishes it. Respect is also about consistency. You can't demand respect on Monday and abandon your principles on Tuesday. It's not about perfection, it's about integrity. Do your actions align with your words? Do you treat others with the same respect you expect in return? Because respect isn't a one-way street, it's reciprocal. You can't expect to receive what you're not willing to give. And here's the truth. Sometimes the people closest to you will test your boundaries the most. Not because they're bad people, but because they've gotten comfortable. They've gotten used to the version of you that didn't speak up, that didn't say no, that let things slide. But growth requires change, and change can make people uncomfortable. That's okay. Your job isn't to make everyone comfortable. Your job is to honor your growth, even if it means outgrowing certain relationships. Self-respect also means walking away when something no longer serves you. Whether it's a job, a friendship, a relationship. If it's costing you your peace, your joy, your sense of self, the price is too high. Walking away isn't a sign of weakness, it's a declaration of worth. It's saying, I deserve better, and I refuse to settle. That kind of courage is rare. That kind of self-awareness is powerful. And don't forget, respect isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it looks like saying no without explanation. Sometimes it's the quiet confidence to stand alone when standing alone is the right thing to do. It's in the discipline to show up for yourself day after day, even when no one's watching. So, ask yourself, are you living in a way that commands respect, starting with how you treat yourself? Are your boundaries clear, your values non-negotiable, your actions aligned with your words? Because at the end of the day, respect isn't about titles, money, or status. It's about character, it's about integrity, it's about knowing who you are, standing firm in that truth, and refusing to shrink to make others comfortable. You don't have to demand respect when you embody it. You don't have to chase validation when you know your worth. And you don't have to fear losing people who can't handle your growth. Because the right people, the ones who see you, who value you, will respect you not just for who you are, but for the boundaries you set to protect that person. That's real power. That's real respect. Success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become in the process. Too many people are chasing titles, status, applause, but they miss the point. Real success isn't loud. It doesn't need validation. It's not about showing off to the world. It's about showing up for yourself. It's about the silent victories, the discipline when no one's watching, the decisions you make when there's no spotlight, no audience, no recognition. That's where character is built. That's where greatness is forged. You see, the problem today is that everybody wants to be seen. Everyone's addicted to attention. But attention isn't the same as respect. Popularity isn't the same as purpose. And if your value comes from how many people are clapping for you, you're setting yourself up to be empty when the applause stops. Because it will stop. It always does. The crowd moves on, the lights go out, and then it's just you, alone with who you are when nobody's looking. That's the real test. Real success is quiet. It's in the early mornings when you're grinding, when everyone else is sleeping. It's in the late nights when you're studying, planning, praying, working, not because someone's watching, but because you've got a vision, a standard for your life. You don't need an audience when you're driven by purpose. You don't need applause when your motivation comes from within. And let me tell you something about the journey to success. It's lonely. It's not glamorous. It's filled with setbacks, disappointments, sacrifices. You'll lose people along the way, not because you've changed, but because growth exposes those who were never really in your corner. People will call you arrogant for having boundaries. They'll call you selfish for choosing yourself, but that's not your problem. Your job isn't to make people comfortable with your growth. Your job is to honor the calling on your life, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You've got to be willing to outgrow people, outgrow habits, outgrow mindsets that no longer serve you. Because success isn't just about adding more to your life, it's about letting go. Letting go of fear, letting go of excuses, letting go of the need to be liked by everyone. You can't carry dead weight and expect to rise. Sometimes you've got to walk alone to reach the places meant for you. But here's the thing, loneliness isn't the same as being alone. You might feel isolated on your journey, but that's because you're being set apart. Growth requires separation. Diamonds aren't made in crowds. They're formed under pressure, in the dark, far away from public view. That pressure, that's your training ground. That's where resilience is built. That's where character is tested. Embrace it. And stop waiting for perfect conditions to start. There's no such thing as the right time. The right time is when you decide. Too many people are stuck because they're waiting for fear to go away. Newsflash, fear never goes away. You just get stronger. You learn to move through it. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's taking action despite it. Every successful person you admire felt fear, but they didn't let it stop them. They showed up anyway. They failed anyway. They kept going anyway. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the process. Every setback is a lesson, every mistake a teacher. The only real failure is quitting. As long as you're still in the game, as long as you're still trying, you're winning. Because growth isn't linear, it's messy, unpredictable, filled with detours. But every detour teaches you something. Every delay builds patience. Every rejection builds resilience. Virtually, don't despise the process. The process is where the magic happens. Success isn't a destination, it's a mindset. It's not about what you have, it's about who you are. Are you disciplined when no one's watching? Are you consistent when motivation fades? Motivation is fleeting. It's easy to be excited on day one. But what about day 100, when you're tired, when results are slow, when no one's cheering you on? That's when discipline kicks in. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. And here's the truth. Success doesn't change you, it reveals you. If you're insecure without it, you'll be insecure with it. If you're lost without it, you'll be lost with it. That's why inner work is just as important as outer work. You've got to be rooted in something deeper than achievements. Otherwise, you'll reach the top and still feel empty. Success without purpose is a recipe for misery. But that's fulfillment. So, what's your why? Why do you do what you do? Because when your why is strong enough, the how doesn't matter. The obstacles don't matter. The opinions of others don't matter. Your why becomes your anchor when life tries to shake you. It keeps you grounded when things get tough. And trust me, they will get tough. Life will test you. It will throw curveballs. But when you're anchored in purpose, you bend, you don't break. Stop comparing your journey to others. Your path is yours for a reason. Social media has people fooled thinking success is overnight. It's not. It's years of hard work behind the scenes. It's sacrifices no one sees. It's battles no one knows about. So don't get discouraged when your timeline doesn't match someone else's highlight reel. Focus on your lane. Your journey is valid, even if it doesn't look like someone else's. And finally, never forget where you came from, but don't let it define you. Your past is a chapter, not the whole story. Use it as fuel, not as an excuse. You're not limited by your circumstances. You're limited by your mindset. The greatest prison is the one we build in our own minds. Break free, dream bigger, believe in the impossible, because the only limits that exist are the ones you accept. At the end of the day, success isn't about being better than someone else. It's about being better than who you were yesterday. It's about growth. It's about impact. It's about living a life that matters, not just for you, but for those you inspire along the way. Because the true measure of success isn't what you accumulate, it's what you contribute. And if you can live a life of purpose, of integrity, of authenticity, you've already won. At the end of the day, success isn't about the noise you make or the recognition you receive. It's not about the applause, the titles, or the validation from others. True success is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in who you are when no one's watching. It's built in the early mornings when the world is still asleep, in the late nights when doubt creeps in, and in the countless moments of discipline, sacrifice, and resilience that no one else will ever see. It's about showing up for yourself, not because someone expects it, but because you've set a standard for your life, a standard you refuse to compromise. You don't have to announce your every move. You don't need to prove your worth to people who can't see your value. Your growth doesn't require an audience. Your transformation doesn't need to be broadcast. The strongest trees grow in silence, their roots deep and unshaken. Likewise, your journey, your grind, your evolution, it's personal. It's sacred, and it's powerful beyond measure, because it's authentic, not fueled by external approval, but by internal purpose. Understand this, people will come and go. Their opinions will change with the wind. One moment they'll cheer for you, the next they might doubt you, but none of that defines you. What defines you is how you respond when the noise fades. What defines you is the integrity you hold when no one's watching, the discipline you maintain when motivation runs dry, and the faith you carry when the path ahead is uncertain. So, stop seeking validation from people who don't understand your vision. Stop explaining your dreams to those who can't see beyond their own limitations. Your journey isn't for everyone to understand, it's for you to walk. And as you walk it, let your actions speak louder than your words. Let your consistency be your proof. Let your growth be your answer. In the end, the only person you need to impress is the one looking back at you in the mirror. Live a life that honors your potential, your purpose, and your principles. Keep grinding in silence. Keep growing in the shadows, because when it's time, when the fruits of your labor finally blossom, they won't be able to ignore the greatness you've built quietly, patiently, and powerfully.